Trump and the Chi-Coms reach a tentative tariff deal. Slopstream media misrepresents gang invasion from Venezuela. Quick preview. Maybe America is not broke. This is Dr. David D. Shine for Saving America with my own take on key stories from this past week focused on politics and business. Reporting from Brussels, Belgium. Following a rapid 4-day tour of Southwest France and preceded by 4 days in the Big Apple. Since I'm using my mobile studio to record this report, I'm wearing my casual Charles Tyrwhitt shirt, unlike my usual Tyrwhitt dress shirt with a tie. Trump administration claims 90 days relaxation of tariffs due to meeting between U.S. Chinese officials in Geneva. Of course, the crazed Chi-Coms want to claim that America blinked first, but any keen observer knows that China is in trouble due to its irrational policies of Xi and the CCP. In any event, there were 2 days of meetings between U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and America's top trade negotiator Jameson Greer. This began talks with the high-ranking Chinese officials in Switzerland. The meeting took place at the home of the Swiss ambassador to the United Nations. Details are very sketchy other than a 90-day sort of a truce with a 145% tariff on China reduced to 30% during that time. China will lower its on U.S. goods from 125% to 10%. Earlier tariffs, however, will stay in place. China, of course, is the source of the raw ingredients used to make fentanyl and has ripped off the world's technology for decades. Now, not sure how Trump plans to really fix that. American trade's deficit with China was $263 billion in 2024. Sadly, much of our pharmaceuticals and thousands of other products are now only made in China. Interestingly, Switzerland, the host, is not part of the EU, and there are now virtually no tariffs between the United States and Switzerland. Hey, that's good news for those lovers of Swiss chocolate out there. UK makes first public tariff deal with the United States. This is an interesting story, but pales in volume to the China story. This has been presented as a done deal, but the paperwork is far behind, reportedly at least 90 days before we know the details of this UK tariff deal. Roughly, the deal is UK gets a break on autos, steel, and aluminum. In turn, the Brits will buy more American beef and streamline its custom process for goods from the United States. Limited details include auto tariffs, which would go from 27.5% to 10% on a quota of 100,000 vehicles, and the import taxes on steel and aluminum would go from 25% to 0. Despite the fact that the volume is not huge, the significance of a first deal should not be minimized. Talks are still pending with Japan, India, Vietnam, and South Korea. Naturally, the big one behind China is the EU, and no real word on what's happening there at the moment. Oregon, out of step with Americans. This is sourced from a special report by the America First Policy Institute, which stated that Oregon's education bureaucracy has made its position clear. Girls' sports are no longer for girls. The report continued. AFPI's legal team sent formal letters to U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi and Education Secretary Linda McMahon requesting a federal investigation into the Oregon Department of Education and the Oregon School Activities Association for clear violations of Title IX. The Policy Institute claims that Oregon's aggressive gender-expansive policies require girls' schools to allow biological males to compete in girls' sports. I agree with the conclusion that these policies are dangerous, demoralizing, and illegal. The report emphasizes that such policies are part of a statewide policy that undermines the integrity of women's sports and violates the civil rights protections guaranteed under Title IX. Slopstream media misrepresents gang invasion from Venezuela. In a fascinating report by Jared Stepman in the Daily Signal, the correctly titled Slopstream media has presented the TDA terrorism infiltration of the USA under the Biden-Harris administration as just the TDA taking advantage of an unprotected border. However, citing the New York Post, it credited a report titled Venezuela Examining Regime Ties to Tren de Aragua. It says that intelligence officials think that the Venezuelan socialist regime, led by President Nicolas Maduro, has facilitated the illegal migration of gang members into the U.S. quote, to advance what they see as the Maduro regime's goal of destabilizing governments and undermining public safety. The Daily Signal indicated that the motivation of the lopstream media, like the discredited New York Times, is that if this is just TDA sneaking in, that hurts the use of the Alien Enemies Act. However, if a failed commie government is helping that invasion, that supports the use of the act by the Trump administration. Consistent with my support of the use of the act against these deadly gangs is a stunning recent report from New York City. As we reported recently on Saving America, a gang of 11 teens attacked some police trying to stop a robbery. They were reported to be part of TDA. Apparently, all had previously been arrested, but were in a shelter, likely at public expense, instead of a holding facility somewhere. New York City must do more to protect the public. During my recent brief visit, I was constantly concerned about the safety of my family members while visiting there for a family event. Quick preview. Maybe America is not broke. A colleague of mine sent me a link to a new article, America's Hidden Strategic Reserve. Jim Rickards reveals forgotten $150 trillion asset tied to post-Civil War legal code. This fascinating article references a report by ex-CIA advisor Jim Rickards titled The American Birthright. The article claims that the recent elimination of the Chevron Doctrine, which we've talked about on our Business Law 101 series, is a court-created fraud that should certainly not have been around for 40 years, and it may allow America to now claim $100 trillion in reserve of natural wealth buried beneath federal land, wealth that has been inaccessible due to historical legal protections and government regulations. My staff is contacting Rickards about doing an interview in the future to discuss his work in more detail here on Saving America. The latest from Alan Dershowitz. The famed liberal law professor emeritus from Harvard Law School has been very visible for about a decade about the legal failures of the left. He recently opined that when Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson condemned the attacks by Trump and his allies against judges who are blocking the administration's policies, she failed to take historic precedent into her comments. Dershowitz weighed into the controversy in a Newsmax interview with Greta Van Susteren. He summarized that Thomas Jefferson attacked judges appointed by John Adams much more ferociously. Lincoln attacked judges. Indeed, he suspended the writ of habeas corpus. Famously, FDR intimidated judges and threatened that he would pack the court, and that resulted in the switch in time saved none. Importantly, he added that judges deserve acceptance based only on the quality of their opinions, not on the fact that they're wearing robes. I came across a fascinating article from the Wall Street Journal titled Why Florida's Condo Owners Are So Desperate to Sell. That caught my eye since Florida seems to be the place everyone wants to live these days. The article indicates that insurance increases, special assessments, and limited financing options have jacked up costs beyond reasonable market conditions. Older units are taking a bigger hit. The article noted that some 30 years or older condos are down 22% over the last 2 years. Again, a bit of a surprise. Corn versus flour tortillas, which is healthier? This is from a recent article by Katie McCollum in Houston Methodist on Health newsletter. Being based in Houston, Texas, Mexican food is a diet staple. Of course, while tortillas can be eaten many ways, toasted ones are the keys to a great taco. The article concludes that white corn tortillas have a little less carbs. It's not significant difference. So both are about the same. As someone who tries to eat only corn tortillas, I did have a different take. White flour tortillas have gluten, but more important, they're usually made with lard and salt. The corn tortilla is usually made only with water and either low salt or no salt, so less fat and sodium from my view. The article does note that for diabetics, either can contribute to the glycemic index, so that they should be considered when planning their meals. This is Dr. David D. Shine. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.